All right, welcome, welcome. This is Dawn Reby from Excellence in Analytics, and I'm really excited to be here today with Carina Lawson. Part of what we do here in our Tribe of Excellence is we bring in some great speakers to really nail down some of the strategies that we promote, which, in this case, it is high efficiency, high energy, goal setting and achieving. And so I have a very special guest here, Carina Lawson, who is the owner CEO of Ponder Lily, which I love the products there. I can't wait to talk about them. So let's go ahead and get started. Carina, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm so happy to be here. I really appreciate meeting everyone in your community, even if it's like a virtual meeting like this. I know that they're very, very busy, so I am truly honored to be, speaking to your community today. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to say, you're in a whole other country. It's 9:21 at night, so you stayed up for us because I'd be in bed. So you stayed up for us, and you've also done some work with our leadership group. And so I just want to say a huge thank you to you for being here so late at night and really just giving so much of yourself to us. So thank you.
Of course, it's my pleasure. Like, this is something that I'm very passionate about. So anytime I get the opportunity to speak about the topic, I'm all for it.
Yeah. And I see a couple of guitars in the background there. Are you a musician?
No, these are two of my husband and my daughters love to play the guitar. So yeah, I just got annoyed of them lying around on the ground or on the sofa. So
they look beautiful. They look beautiful.
Thank you.
I like the design. My daughter loves music, and she would love something like that. So I want to just say thank you because you did work with us. You sent over a beautiful video for our leadership program specific for them. You also produced these little cards for us with all of our RG family members. Well, some of them, right? Because this photo was taken several months ago. And so we've certainly grown since then, but I loved having this as part of that little package. And I just want to show you off a little bit. This is the gift that we shared with our leadership folks. Every single person in our program, leadership and RG, got this, and it says, this week, positive intentions, highlights how I will recharge this week. And then it has Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and a little list of summaries and so forth. So I love it. I've gotten such great feedback already from several of our clients who literally were, technology people, and they love having this on their desk so they can see exactly what they're achieving for the day. And I especially love the piece where it says, how will I recharge? One of the things we stand for greatly is leadership of self as a priority for our law enforcement and emergency response professionals. So it just completely aligns with the whole thing. Thank you for being part of that gift giving to our RG family. I appreciate you.
Of course. And every product that I designed for Ponder Lily has those three components: the intentions, the opportunity to recharge, and the piece of gratitude as well. So even because I found that during my workday, in a very I do have a high pressure job, and especially at a time where the company was going through a restructure, those three things really anchored me to do my job well. And so when I did more research on the topic, I was like, why don't we just have that front and center, right next to our laptop? Why can't we have that on every piece of productivity tool that I develop? I want to make sure that people have the opportunity to think through those three things, because oftentimes we forget because we're so busy doing all the other things, right?
Exactly. I love that too, that piece of being super intentional about what you want to achieve. And then you see it written down and you're just like, I did that. I did something today. So when the days go and they're spinning, you look at your sheet and you're like, oh, I actually did quite a few things. So you have a stressful job. You're a business analyst, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And so you understand a lot of our folks are criminal or intelligence analysts, which is dealing with data just like you do. And there's high stakes, right? There's, are we going to find the offender? What patterns can we analyze? So different high stakes, right? But you can it's very relatable to the work you do because you are also buried in the data. And so, how did you come up, like, how did you come up with all this? Like, what did you, because this is part-time for you, right? So how did you just come up with this?
Well, when I was doing my master's in business administration, my research was around employee wellness. And I heard time and time again about how they weren't eating well, or they would come into work already stressed out, and they were rushing, immediately out the door. And they were always feeling behind, and that they were never doing something that they felt was good enough. And I heard this time and time again.
Yeah.
And especially after having had children, I had twins, and my husband happens to work he doesn't work in law enforcement, but he does work in health and safety. He works specifically with fire safety. In fact, on our first date, he had to leave because there was a fire somewhere, and he was the person, along with his team, who was appointed by the government to do the investigation. So I know that I see it firsthand when, he gets a phone call and he has to go to an emergency situation and then deal with reports after. So I get that. But, especially after having had children and going back to work when my children were only 5 months old, I started to see, and pay attention, because I've always loved stationery, and I would pay attention to how people in meetings, teams, they would take notes. I always found that fascinating. And they would write on the margins of their, note, whatever note-taking product that they were using, the things that they wanted to do. And it was things like lunch, ? Go for a walk, ? And I always thought, and the more research that I did on planners, because I've always loved planners and things like that, one of the taglines of a very famous planner company is, so you can find some margin. And that really annoyed me, because I'm like, why isn't our lives just front and center? Why can't we put our wellness front and center on the page?
Yes.
Why do we have to keep things,
Yes.
to the margins, right? And I get the concept of margin, which is giving yourself space. And I'm like, but why can't you give yourself space during the day?
Yeah.
During the week? Why can't it be first? So I always question that. And, I would always see people rushing, to go pick up their kids during their lunch break, or they were rushing to grab something quick to eat, so that they could have it at their desk. And I'm like, I just don't understand it. I don't want to live that kind of life myself. I would like to have a meal at a table. Thank you very much. I don't want to skip lunch because I'm working on the report. Because I noticed that my blood sugar would crash, and
Exactly.
right?
And then you stuff a bunch of M&Ms in your mouth to stay awake.
Exactly. And I happen to have 2 autoimmune conditions, and I only found out much later, and I realized all the little incremental things that I would forget to do, like eat.
Yeah.
They were impacting my health in a big way, and they were impacting and I felt like they weren't impacting my productivity, but it really was. So I didn't want that kind of life for myself, for my children, for my colleagues. And so, when I would put the kids to sleep, I would always I would design something on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
And I happened to mention to a friend of mine, I have so much to do. And she said, I could never bring this to life. And she said, you get to have a family, and you get to pick them up, and you get to go to this really, to this job that you love and you enjoy. And that's when my mindset shifted. And that's when I became very, very passionate about helping people put themselves on the agenda. Especially amidst all these things you see on social media about what the Pinterest perfect sandwich looks like.
I know. Yes. So you develop all of these tools and materials. You start your business part-time because you have this full-time analyst job, and you start serving so many people. And now you're here today to talk about 4 major things that we can do to really better align. First of all, the fact that you had twins and did all this, like, kudos to you. I'm a twin and I know how horrible it was for my mom. So I'm excited that you have had this drive and this energy to just deliver excellence. And you can relate certainly to so many people here who are trying to get so many things done and, have this family and enjoy the family, not just, go home and do the thing. So let's talk about these tips that you have. What's your first number one tip?
Sure. So I think my first tip is to really create a routine for, like, people talk about morning routines all the time, right? I would love to see people create a routine for when they arrive at work and really think about, like, what do I want my work day to be? What do I want it to be like? And we know that there are going to be like different demands and deadlines and things like that. But from the moment that you sit down at your desk and before you turn the computer on, and this is really important, like, what do you do on the first minute before you turn the computer on? Like, I want you to really think about that, whether it's to grab a glass of water to really activate your workday. I want you to think about, like, my first tip would definitely be to create a morning routine that extends into your workday, because I know that many of you can't have this, like, morning routine from the 5 a.m. club or whatever. Yeah. So, so design your workday that really anchors you on in a place of like leading with efficiency. Yeah. The second tip that I would offer would
let me pause you on that first tip, because first of all, I love Robin Sharma, the 5 a.m. club. I'm totally a 5 a.m. clubber, but I do get that not everybody operates at that space. And so the fact that, if you're going to work at 9 and you show up at 8:45 and you say during those 15 minutes, or you show up at 9 and say between 9 and 9:15, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to, nourish my body with a nice tall glass of water. I'm going to, smell some oils. I'm going to look at my day for the week and say, what's the one thing that I can achieve today that's going to make me feel successful? And then take a deep breath and then start your day. Like something like some kind of sequence like that intention is so powerful, because often I see, lieutenants, chiefs, analysts, dispatchers walking in and they sit down and they're just like, okay, the fire has hit. Okay. So I love your first tip of, it doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be 5 hours. It could be 15, it could be 5 minutes. It could be 15 minutes of organizing yourself and creating a routine that says, to create calmness in my day, to create ease and flow, I do 1, 2, and 3 every day before I even get going. I love it. I love it. All right. Tip number 2. I'm ready. I'm leaning in.
Tip number 2 is, like, you guys have the, you guys have the notepad, right? Now, I would love for you to figure out a way that you think would be best to plan your week. For example, whether it's time blocking, because a lot of us, we may be at work and then we go home and like, oh shoot, I forgot to pick this up, or I forgot to stop by the dry cleaners and things like that, or I forgot to call my dentist. So time block. You can either use time blocking to say, between 12 and 1, I'm going to have lunch. This is a non-negotiable. And this is why I'm going to have lunch. And write it down on a little Post-it note, like why it's important for you to have lunch. Yes. When you just have a goal, but you don't really root in the why, even if it's a goal like nourishing yourself throughout your workday, I think that's really important. So either time block, where you can either make a phone call, to schedule some things outside of work, during your break, or if you want to go have lunch, that's great. Whether you want to use your planner to do task batching. So let's say between 9 and 10, I'm going to answer my emails for the day, and then I'm going to work on my reports, and then later I will finish. I will work on my emails again. So you can either. I'm sorry.
So Carina, like, you're not just pulling this stuff out of thin air. These are scientific methods. The Tim Ferriss book talks about this quite a bit. The 4-hour work week, how displaced we get when when there is an interruption and it takes 20 minutes for us to get refocused. And so what you're proposing, the time chunking piece, right, is certainly important. And if you are in a profession where time chunk, well, first of all, if you want to learn how to time chunk, we have our productivity masterclass that y'all can access. And that we do a couple times a year as well, but people in our programs have access to it at within their folders, it's available all the time for them. And there's a notebook, like a workbook that goes along with it. But so if you want to learn details around time chunking, you can definitely do that. A lot of folks in our profession, time chunking is hard because, they might work dispatch, or they might be a lieutenant or a captain who that's the desk that people go to, and there's these constant interruptions. So I like the idea that you're talking about for them of batching, well, for both, but for them for batching, to decide that you're not going to try to accomplish everything all at the same time, but batch your activities, just like Tim Ferriss's book, The 4-Hour Workweek, so that you can just rock them out, like batch all of your easy data requests, batch all of your, your phone call, returning phone calls, even like your texts, batched when you're going to text, right? And when am I going to get to everybody? Well, I could do it throughout the day and potentially skip somebody because or I can just at 1:00 say, I'm going to text everybody back, or whatever it might be. So I love the idea of batching as a tool for productivity. Fantastic. What's your third tip?
My third tip would be to day theme. Like, I have to provide updates on certain reports. And for my own sanity and my own personal workflow, I like to make sure that happens the day before my boss has to have his meeting with our dean. So, because I want to be prepared and I want to be able to give him a status update. So I see my days where I do all the, I shouldn't say admin, but like where I do all the status updates on my report. So that way I'm always prepared, and I find that really helps me set up my week in a good way. So I tend to do that on a Monday or a Tuesday. And then time boxing. It's so important to have, especially if you're producing a very large report, like if you're doing an annual report and things like that. You can't get it all done in one day, right? Like, it's a lot more effective if you just maybe perhaps like work with incremental time. So then when it's due, you already have it ready, because then you're not caught off guard when you have to submit a report, and that's an added stress, right? So I typically like to use, because whenever I would hear about time chunking and then someone would explain it to me, I'm like, well, I prefer to get things done on like a specific day rather than a time, because you're pulled into different meetings. So or maybe I can do it outside of, when I'm on my way to work, I can have somebody call me in and give me the status update. So there's so many different ways that you can organize your productivity, really.
Exactly. And I'm thinking about, so some of our folks are responsible for these things called ComStat, which is strategy development. And so, they're responsible for providing information on patterns, trends, significant events and things like that. And so sometimes there's certain pieces of it that can take a lot longer than others. So I like the idea of chunking and kind of doing it all along, but in these time blocking periods that you talk about, so that you're not caught off and trying to squeeze everything into, right beforehand. I do this with my business. I used to just book coaching clients whenever, right? I'm like, oh, what's good for them is Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday at 7 a.m., at 9 a.m., like whatever. And so I found that it took me a while to really like get into the groove of being with them. And so I decided to limit coaching to 2.5 days out of the week. So, if there's an emergency, like obviously we'll coach outside of that. But when I do that, it sets my day up. So one day I can have creativity happen. I can do content creation, just be with the earth elements, just do all the things. Then when I do have to be that coach, I can be so present that I'm not worried about all these other things. So I love this time, compartmentalizing your time that you're talking about. I think it's extremely efficient And it's truly helped me, accelerate my progress as well. Yeah.
And I think my final tip would be that, you can use these productivity tools, like these methods for work, which we're quite proficient with.
Yeah.
And I tend to lean on them as well in my personal life, because there's nothing worse than, you come home and you forget to, a delivery or something like that. And so what I have found, and what I thought was really interesting, is that something like making dentist appointments, like I would often forget. So now I lean into my dentist office. I'm like, hey, can you guys remind me, or can you just call me like whenever we have to get these appointments? Can we just have it recurring every 6 months? And can we get the whole family together? One appointment.
Batch your family.
Yes, I batch my family. My husband thinks it's hilarious. I'm like, no, we're doing this.
Yes, it's so efficient. Exactly. We do the same thing
with them.
Exactly.
So like not the dentist office, outside of the dentist office. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean. We do the same thing. My daughter had a dentist, doctor, orthodontist. And I'm like, if we're going to take you out of school for the day, like, let's just get everything done and then go have fun together. If we have extra, as we have pockets of time. So we're not like, gotta get you here, so it's just like, that's in the morning, that's in the afternoon, that's later in the afternoon. And we enjoy the process. So I like that. I like that. Awesome. So, okay. So I know you have Ponder Lily. For those of you who are watching this replay, right? Because we're here on the replay. I'm gonna put Carina's company, which is Ponder Lily, the link in there. I really love the tools, that she has. This is just one of them that we use for our clients over in Rising Genius, and I actually am talking about doing it with the family. I literally was just saying to my daughter, because she wants to earn, my 10-year-old wants to earn special shopping. At school, they have a little cafe, right? So she wants money for the cafe. And so I'm like, babe, you got to get your stuff done, but you keep on forgetting. So we got a notebook, we got a bulletin board, we got all these things, and nothing seems to be working. And I'm like, how cool would it be just to use this where it says Monday? It might be hard to see, but it says Monday right here. Yeah. To write down the chore that she's responsible for, the 30 minutes reading that she has to do. And she just like checks it off as she goes. And then, down here, the goal is $10 for the store or whatever it might be. And so, I think we can use this in our work lives, in our home lives. I personally love planners. I have, success. We follow what's called the success list, right? So instead of to-dos, which I think is why we relate so much, is we don't just write a bunch of stuff down that needs to be done. We really align it with what goals we want to achieve. And so that creates a success list versus just a to-do list. So there's purpose, which you mentioned a little bit earlier, right? That purpose piece. So for those of you who want to get some stuff for the holidays or beyond, I mean, every month, you want to be, having this organization, we'll have Ponder Lily, the link in the comments section for you. So you can just click on the link and go ahead and order some stuff. I ordered it. It came in like 3 days. I was like, girl, you're from another country. So let's talk about that. Where are you physically right now?
I'm in Doha, Qatar, but because my father-in-law, who lives in the UK, my husband's from England, and so is his family. And that's where we call home, but his job brought us here. So my business is based in our house in the UK, and my father-in-law does all the dispatch, but we are partners with DHL. So we got a flat fee to the US on packages up to a certain weight. So we are guaranteed door to door within 3 days, like, maybe 5. Yeah. If you count the weekend, like in between.
Yeah. I thought that was remarkable. And so what country are you in right now?
Doha, Qatar.
And Qatar. Tell me where that is. Cause I know you were talking about the geography.
Yeah. It's in the Persian Gulf, and I always give Dubai as a reference. So we're about it's a half an hour flight from Doha to Dubai.
I love it. And so, how often do you get back to the UK?
We would get back to the UK twice a year, but now with with the pandemic, like we haven't been home in about 18 months. But we are planning on going for Christmas. So yeah, very excited.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah.
I and you and I met through Advance, and so that's a women business entrepreneurs group, and and I was blown away with some of the work that you do, specifically because it aligns with what we do here, which is high performance, really fueled by why, by purpose, by intention. And so I'm so glad that we found each other. I'm so glad that you're here with our community today, and especially glad that you came virtually, created some videos and tools for us, for our RG folks. That's something that we love doing with our community, is really just loving on them and finding great people like you to love on them. So thank you for being the conduit of that and allowing us to really tap into your superpowers.
Thank you so much. And you've been so gracious and kind, and I really appreciate this.
Yeah. Well, I think we're going to wrap up here. I got a little one to go pick up, and you got 2 little ones to go take care of. So, and you got to go to bed soon, right? Because it's 9:30 now, 9:45. You must be exhausted.
Oh, no worries.
Thank you, Carina. I appreciate you so much. Thank you for your tools, your energy, your enthusiasm. I certainly hope that folks who are listening to this get inspired to get organized, to get high performance and high efficiency strategies built into your lives by the 4 key things that Carina talked about today, but also by going onto her website, grabbing some stuff for you, for your coworkers, for your families, to really move yourself forward and faster, accelerated in your growth paths. So thank you again, Carina. I appreciate you, and we'll talk to you real soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.